Let's get started. So right now you'll notice all of our layers are locked, which is just fine. What I want to draw your attention to is on the screen. If you see, I can't draw anything or move or click anything. That's because, one, I don't have a layer selected, and two, everything is locked. Now look what happens when I unlock here. I can use a pen tool and I can start to draw lines. So I want you to be aware of that moving forward because that's the most common issue I get. And to delete that line, all I did was I drew a line and then I clicked it and hit delete on my keyboard. So I'm going to lock my base layer and draw your attention to what we copy and pasted in here earlier. So if you look, let's start by drawing our thinnest lines and then we'll go all the way down to thick lines, okay? So make sure that base image is locked. This must be locked immediately, otherwise it will move around on you and it can be a total pain. So you'll want to look at the expectations for your site plan on the discussion post before you start. That is super important. I cannot iterate that enough because it will tell you exactly the bounds of the site you need to draw for your proposed site. So make sure to take advantage of those instructions and rubrics and read all of that to ensure you're getting the maximum amount of points on that project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the first thing, trees. Okay? And so when I draw my trees here, I'm going to select thinnest lines and unclick that. And here I want to use a circle. So I'm going to right click here on the line, ellipse tool. So now that I have that, I'm going to start drawing my trees, which is super fun. And I'm just going to keep it simple with circles. We can change that in the future, but remember I have to click shift in order to get that proportionate in a perfect circle. And if you look here, I don't have any line weight on here, so I'm going to change that to, let's do 0.25, okay? And just to make sure that reads, I'm going to hide my base image. And I'm actually struggling to see what I drew, so I'm going to lock my thin layer, okay? Then move on to my base image, click that, go to properties, and change my opacity to maybe 50% and hit enter. Then I'm going to lock my base image and go back to thinnest lines and unlock that. It just allows me to see it a little easier. What I want to ensure is that on each layer, I want to make sure that all my line thicknesses are the same. So that's the purpose of this organization system we've drawn here. So we're on the red layer called thinnest. And I'll just simply copy paste, Control C, Control V, or Command, depending on your system. And I am going to speed through this. Let's take a look how it looks without the base image. So I'm going to lock my tree layer, which is called thinnest lines, and I will hide the base image. And we can see here, hey, that looks pretty good. Okay, and I'm just zooming in with my mouse. And if you're on a PC, you can hit Alt and you can zoom in that way as well. All right, let's take a look at what's next. So I'm going to unhide that base layer and I'm going to look at thin lines, okay? So thin lines are sidewalks, grassy areas, and changes in ground texture. So let's start drawing those. And I am going to change layers and unlock thin lines. And then here I'm going to hit what's the pen, called the pen tool. And I am going to just draw those easy lines. And just a heads up, you may notice that it kind of clicks to 45-degree angles. And that's because I'm holding shift. So you want to make sure to hold down shift. Okay. And it is totally okay to overlap and cut off some lines like I did here. We'll take care of that in a bit, so don't worry about that. But one thing I want to call your attention to is let's unlock our thin layer quick and see what line weight we're working with. So we'll click on properties and we see that we're working with 0.25. How about we go ahead and we lock that thin layer. We move on, we lock the thinnest layer and we go to thin layer and we change that line weight to 1. Actually, that's a little much. Let's do 0.5, about double the tree. Hey, that looks pretty good. And here I am going over these lines and I'm holding down shift where needed to get those perpendicular lines. And this line isn't quite perpendicular, which is fine. I'll be mindful of that. But I am just drawing up here, and then I'm connecting there, and I'm hitting escape when I'm done. Okay, and I am just making sure that line looks parallel to the one I just drew. Okay, and make sure, this is why we do site visits, because the sidewalk does not end underneath those trees. Okay, so that's why a site visit is so important. And I am just going through and drawing these. Okay, and I can Control Z or Command Z as needed if I don't quite line it up. I just click, and then holding Shift where needed, pushing Escape. Don't worry about some additional curved lines. We'll get to those in a minute. But I want you to go through this and trace all of these components. Okay, and I am going to fast forward here and take you through this process. So you want to make sure to do all of the straight elements first, and then we'll go in and do the curves later. Those are a little tricky, and so it's much easier to start with all of the perpendicular or straight elements first. Okay, one thing I want to point out is you can see here I didn't align the sidewalk, so I'm actually going to redo that and delete that. You can see here it gives me an indication to start, and it's kind of a smart feature that Illustrator has to help you align items. So I want to align there as well, so I can just hover above and it will help me align that. Beautiful. And I'll hold Shift to make that straight. I'm not going to worry about these little curb cuts at the moment. We can go back and change those if needed. And then you'll notice we have a problem here. I need to delete this chunk of line right here that is intersecting here. So that what I'll do is I will use C, my shortcut. That's a shortcut for scissors. If I zoom in and see, I can cut there, and then I can cut there. And then I can end up clicking this and deleting that. And what I can do is I click both of those, then right click and hit join. Okay, click, or shift clicked, right click, join. You can see there, creates a nice little line, nice corner. And I will do the same thing here. So just to reiterate, that's C for scissors, and then you'll want to hit this line up here. You'll want to cut it. You'll have to zoom in a little bit to get the right angle and move it around a bit. Perfect, that's close enough. And then I will go over to the other side. Yep, that looks good. Oh, I didn't quite hit that, so I needed to move the mouse a bit. And then I'm going to just select those two. You can draw a box as well, like I just did. Right click, join. Hey, that didn't work, so let me revisit that. Click, right click, join. Okay, so if that happens, what I'd like you to do is take your white mouse, click once on here, and then click again and drag. And then click back and just drag it, snap it right onto that point with the other line. And then we can go back, right click, join. Okay, I'm going to finish up this sidewalk and I will see you in a minute. Okay, I'm just going to focus on this area to keep it simple for this tutorial, but I'm going to wrap up and then I'm going to show you how to do this corner here. Okay, for this corner, we'll just hit the curve tool right here. We'll double click once, and then we can start to draw our curve. And it's really important that you're double clicking, all right? Okay, then once I have that, I can click off. And then it looks a little wonky, so I want to adjust that. So I click it, go into the white arrow, which is our really precision tool, and I'm going to click once on there and then use this little point right here and kind of bend it back, okay? Something like that, okay? And I don't really like how that turned out, so I'm actually just going to undo. And don't be afraid to do that. That is totally fine here. Okay, and I am going to try that again. Okay, that is a little better. I'm going to just take this little point right here, move it over a tad, and then adjust this point right there. Beautiful. I am happy enough with that. It's not perfect, but it's pretty dang close. So we are going to keep that. Okay, and don't worry about parking spots if you're doing those as well. You do not need to worry about that. And then I have that curved element here, so I'm going to switch to the curve right here, double click. Okay, and it's always helpful to start with shift because it'll ensure that you're going perpendicular from that corner, which that curve looks like it does. And I'm just going to line that up like that, and hey, that looks pretty good. All right, and I have a few others that I could do there, so I'm just going to do that as well. So when you're joining off of a line that's already existing, just join somewhat close to it, and you'll be able to overlap and make it look like it's touching. Okay, so I believe it goes something like this. I'm going to hit escape because I'm done with that, and then I am going to just grab my pen tool and click and start. And I believe it does something similar to that potentially, I'm not quite sure, but that will be good enough for our example. Make sure to get fences as well. You don't need to get all the curb detail, just make sure that when you're drawing lines that they align like this. And a good way to see how you're doing is to hit layers and then turn off your base layer, and you can see we're starting to have a really good map form right here. And what I want to do next is I want to turn my base layer back on and then look at medium lines. So I won't be doing everything here, just a few things. So let's do the roads. I do have a huge monumental sign that's on this site right here, but let me just draw the roads. And so if we did this, these lines in, it looks like, let's see, double check the line weight, 0.5. Why not do these in 0.75? I think that's fine. You'll have to figure out what works for you. You may end up with different line thicknesses, and that's totally okay. Okay. And one thing I want to show you with the corners, this is another thing you can do. So place your anchor down, then hold and bend your mouse. Okay. And you can sometimes get the right angle, but it may not always be what you needed at. And this is pretty close. I don't mind that. That may not be how that looks underneath that tree, but I just wanted to show you an example. Okay, I got close, but it's not quite. And what I can do is I can grab my white arrow and I can come back and I can adjust this. You can see here I have the kind of this pole bar that helps me wiggle the shape and quality of that line. Okay, that didn't quite work, so I just want to show you there are options. So I'm actually going to try the curvature tool. So double click here, shift click, and then let's just simply trace out that curve. And then remember, when you end, you can shift click too, and it will create a really nice corner for you. That'll set you up well. Like by corner, I mean this hooking up to this, just like that. The thickest lines will be existing buildings. For that, we'll just do our existing buildings that we have on site, all right? So I'm going to unlock that one and then select this layer. And then I'm going to hit my pen tool. Oh, I forgot, I need to change my line weight here. Let's make that line weight, instead of 1, let's do 1.25. Let's make those uber important. Okay, and I actually just want to move this building over because I don't really like how those lines don't line up. Beautiful. That looks great. Okay, let's turn that, or lock that, and then let's turn the base image off. Okay, that looks pretty good with the variation of line. I don't have much going on in these areas, so that's fine. They're a little boring for now, but just a few things I want to show you is that when we get to this point, I actually want to change a few things. and that's normal and that's expected. I need more differentiation in my line weight. This is feeling a little too similar all to each other. So I'm going to go back to my thinnest lines, and I'm going to unlock that, and I hit this tiny little marker right here, and that'll select everything. I can go back to properties, and let me make that potentially a 0.2. And that didn't work. I'll just redo that. And you'll have to do what's best for you here. You may find out your site, because your site will be different size on this page too. You'll need different line weights. Hey, that feels pretty good. Then let me see. I'm actually going to turn off my thin lines so I can see how they look. Okay, I actually want my thin lines. This is just my opinion. I want them thinner. I like them like that. I think I might want to make it 0.4. And again, this is up to you. I think that feels pretty good. I'm going to lock that. And then my medium lines, let's see, our roads. You know what? I actually want that thicker. This is just me analyzing my work here. I go up to properties and let's make that, no, 2 is way too much. How about 1.2? 1.2 feels pretty good. And then after that, I would go down to thick lines, select that, hit my arrow up here, that little marker guy, go back to properties, and I can make this, let's try 1.6. That feels pretty good. You can see here I'm starting to have a lot of different variation in line weight, which is perfect. Your site will have more on it, more goodies to play with, and you'll have, you can see I cut off a bunch of buildings here. Yours will be predetermined. I have it in the module about what you need to include, so you'll have an ability to have more line weight variation within here because I made sure to do that. Okay, if you have any questions on this, let me know. I know it can be a little tricky. I just want to recap on a few tools here. We have our pen tool, our curvature tool. We have our, I call this the precision tool, but you can call it the direct selection tool. And then here is our main pointer or selection tool. And then just a friendly reminder that direct selection tool, its main purpose is to not move shapes, but to move points within a shape. So I would go to whatever layer I'm on. I would click this shape, or excuse me, line, and I can double click here and I can start to move that anchor point. So the white here, these are only for anchor points. It's precision, so remember that. The white here is precision. You can think of maybe a surgeon's wearing white gloves or something. And then the black is the everyday one that you use, okay? That's to move full shapes, okay? The white one's not for that. If you have any questions, go ahead and shoot me a message or visit me during office hours. One thing I want to leave you with, this is hard. This is very hard, so please be gracious with yourself. You'll have to rewatch different points of this video, but this is difficult, and I won't lie. I'll be very transparent here. This does take practice. And you can see here I even had to troubleshoot a few things with these corners up here, and that can be a little frustrating. But as soon as you get the first moment of that down and do it a couple times, it becomes easier and easier. So I want you to be easy on yourself as we're moving forward, and make sure to pay attention to those different layer thicknesses. You have to have those organized. And if you open it up, this tab here, you have all of those lines you made, and you can simply hide those, okay? And make sure to lock everything when you're done. That is super important. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.